Hey, what's going on everybody? Amir Fazeli here from Adonis Athletics. They call me the Salty Strength Coach, and in today's video we're going to go through a statement that gets thrown around quite often that sort of skews things or misinforms people that don't know any better in regards to the squats. And that statement goes a little something like this: if you want to build quads, you should do front squats. Or something like this: low bar squats don't really use the quads, they use the posterior chain. So let's delve into it a little bit. Let's explore those statements, and let's have a look at what's right about them, what's maybe a little bit misinformed about them, and set the record straight, shall we? So there are three main types of squats that people usually do, right? Front squats, high bar squats, and low bar squats. Typically you see low bar squats being employed mostly by powerlifters, and front squats is something you see mostly weightlifters employ because it mimics a lot of the positionings that they need, that they require for a lot of their lifts. Okay, so it's very specific to their sport. And the general consensus is when you look at a weightlifter, you see that they have really well developed quads. And so people put the fact that they do a lot of front squats with the fact that they have very consistent development in quads across weightlifters, and they correlate it out to be that front squats is a pure quad developer, right? That other forms of squats don't really involve the quads, and they don't develop the quads. They don't have the capability to build quads like the front squat does. And that's absolutely false. Research has been shown, and research has been done, and it's been shown conclusively, time and time again, that no matter what type of squat you do, whether it's front squat, high bar squat, or low bar squat, the quads and the hip complex are involved in moving the weight. The sum total of force that they generate together is the same for that same absolute weight, no matter what type of squat you do. So for example, if you are front squatting 100 kilos, high bar squatting 100 kilos, or low bar squatting 100 kilos, in all those three cases, the sum of the force that gets generated by knee extensors and hip extensors together is exactly the same. It's equivalent to 100 kilos. There is no difference in that regards. The only difference is that the distribution of force development gets skewed one way or another towards either knee extensors or hip extensors. That does not mean that the quads are never not involved in something like a low bar squat. Quite to the contrary, they're absolutely involved in a low bar squat. You can't squat without adequate quad involvement. It just so happens that there is more hip torque and therefore hip involvement in the low bar squat. But what that also means is that a 100 kilo low bar squat is much easier than a 100 kilo front squat. So you just increase the weight and you get more quad involvement anyway, because there's more force that needs to get generated by all the muscles involved. The reason why front squats has been always associated with a lot of quad development is simply because to do a front squat correctly, meaning keeping a really upright torso, not leaning forward and just going straight up and down, the involvement gets pushed onto the knee extensors much more than the hip extensors. Because of the really upright position, the bar being on the front, you are forced to maintain that upright position, and so there is much greater knee torque involvement, knee torque moment. And so the knee extensors are really heavily called upon. And if you maintain a good front squat position as you're squatting, then the primary movers, the primary involvers are the quads, right? That's why front squats have always been associated with quad development, that you cannot cheat a front squat. And so therefore, the primary involvement and the primary muscles that end up getting developed becomes the quads. If you cheat a front squat, you end up leaning forward, and typically you will lose the bar. You can absolutely, definitely still grow very impressive quads using low bar squatting. In fact, there are plenty of excellent powerlifters out there who use low bar squatting and train very primarily in the low bar squat, and they have very well developed quads. And conversely, there are plenty of weightlifters who obviously do a lot of front squatting, a lot of high bar squatting, and they have very well developed quads. Correlation doesn't always equal causation. The reason why weightlifters have such overdeveloped quads is simply because of one main reason. They don't need to, like powerlifters, focus on squat, bench press, and deadlift. Because of that, a lot of their movement and a lot more volume of squatting can be done and is done by weightlifters. Hence why their squatting capabilities is very impressive, especially pound for pound for lighter weight class weightlifters, because they squat so much. So naturally they're going to have better quad development compared to the average population, or even the above average population for that matter. And also because the weightlifting movements themselves don't really have an eccentric portion, they're not as draining and as fatiguing for the body, for the systems of the body, as powerlifting is. Whereas a lot of heavy deadlifts coupled with heavy squats and bench, they can take their toll. I hope that answers a couple of questions for you guys, and I hope you don't shy away and you don't get scared of doing different types of squats. They're all good for your quad involvement, and they're all good to rotate through your programming, especially if you're a more recreational level lifter and just like to lift. This is Amir Fazeli from Adonis Athletics. I'm the Salty Strength Coach. See you on the next episode.